Great concept from Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, because that's probably the key concept in Stoicism. And the dichotomy of control is very simple. It's basically, Epictetus said there are certain things that are up to you and everything else isn't. And what's up to you is very limited. It's your values, it's your decisions, it's how you react to things. Everything else is external and you have no control over that. And because you have no control over that, you should spend a lot less time being obsessed about it. Once you actually embrace that, it really changes how you interact with the world.
Welcome to Open Book. I am your host, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining us now is an award-winning writer and author. His name is Vitaliy Katsenelson. He's the author of a book called Soul in the Game, The Art of a Meaningful Life, and he's also the CEO of IMA. So first of all, Vitaliy, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much. You've got such an interesting background, and I'm going to quote you and then get you to respond to it. You were born in Russia, but made in America. So tell us your story and tell us what you mean by that before we get into the book.
Sure. So I was born in Murmansk, Russia. I was in the Soviet Russia. And my family immigrated to the United States in 1981. So I came here when I was 18 years old. So when I was growing up in Russia, it was the Soviet Union. Basically, if you stood out from everybody else, you had a miserable life because they would push you down. They did not, in the Soviet Union, they did not like anybody who was different from everybody else. It's almost like, Anthony, so just think about it this way. The analogy probably going to click with you better. Imagine you're working for a large Wall Street bank. You're working in the kind of in the entry-level position, right? So you're just basically told this is what you do and nothing else. If you do anything better, they just send you back and say, no, just keep going, doing what you were doing before. So when it came to, therefore, when I lived in Russia, I did not get a grade higher than C for anything. When I moved to the United States, to Colorado, I went to University of Colorado, Denver. My grades just, I graduated to UC Denver from this cum laude. It's almost like going from a Wells Fargo to working for kind of vibrant hedge fund. And that's basically the difference. Kind of, I was born in Russia, but I really kind of was made in America because this is where I actually, as an individual, this is where I prospered.
So talk about Russia for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Americans for 50, 60 years see Russia as an adversary, yet every time they meet Russian people, they like the Russian people. So we're trying to figure out Russia from an American perspective. You've been in both worlds. Yeah. And so give me an introduction. Pretend I just landed from Mars and I was describing to you America and Russia. What would you say?
So I think it's probably we need to talk about different Russias. Russia's maybe 3 or 4 years ago is different Russia than it is today. Okay, so let me give you the American background, the American perception first, because I think as Americans, we don't look at Russians as Russian people and we think anything negative of them. We think of Russian regime, right?
Yeah.
Well, Russians. But when you wake up in the morning, you spend a lot less time thinking about Russia than almost anything else, right? But Russians think that you are, as American, obsessed about Russia. They think that you acting, that we Americans actively hate them. And so therefore, if when I talk to my Russian classmates, they are obsessed about America today. They basically think that that's our single focus in life is to hate Russians. Now, I think this is a relatively new phenomenon, at least to this degree, after the war started. But when I lived in Soviet Union before 1991, I was taught to hate Americans. And, because there was so much propaganda, so many propaganda movies that showed Americans as basically this blood-sucking capitalists who lynch black people, eat hamburgers, and only think about his money. And then this was before the Cold War ended. Then the Cold War ended, and suddenly you start to watch a lot of American movies that we could not watch before. And suddenly you start seeing a very different America. And Russians actually fell in love with America. So when like in 1990, 1991, 1992, Russians absolutely loved America. And then then that changed over time.
All right, we're going to transition to the book. It's such a great title, and there's such meaningful analysis about life in the book, Vitaliy. So let's go to the book, Soul in the Game. When you say soul in the game, and I read the book, it implies a sort of like a deep personal investment. We're all students of life, but you're talking about putting your soul in the game. So what does this mean?
Yeah. So let's start with skin in the game. Obviously, there's a book when it's about skin in the game, and that's very simple, right? You when you have skin in the game, you don't just enjoy the upside, but you suffer the consequence of downside. So so if you are a portfolio manager, you are you not just managing somebody else's money, but your money is your money is the same pot. Soul in the game, it's skin in the game plus alignment. And that's what it is, really. Soul in the game is alignment. It's you aligned with whatever you're doing. So where money becomes very secondary to you. And when you wake up in the morning and your why is to host a podcast, you are doing this. So that's what soul in the game is. It's basically you are aligned with whatever is you are passionate about. And the key here is that usually money is a very secondary element here.
What is that for you? Tell us about your soul being in the game. Tell us what you are driven by.
So I'm very lucky because, first of all, I love investing. So I get to, so it's for me, it's a hobby for which I get paid for. But I get to come to work and do investment research, analyzing companies. So for me, it's a perfect alignment. Also, I love writing, and I wake up every morning about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I write for 2 hours. So I have an alignment here. So for me, it's basically I do what I love. And so now let me give you an example of how it relates to let's say my day job. If because I have soul in the game, if every decision I'll make will be, I will not make a decision that's going to go, it's part of my identity, and therefore I'm not going to make a decision that's going to go contrary to this. So in other words, if let's say I could get a large client and then therefore would have to start compromising on my principles, it's going to go against my soul in the game. Therefore, I would never do that. That is an example.
Okay. When I think about my soul and what my soul is in the game of, even though I'm in the money management business like you, I think of it as a human connection. Human connection is like super important for me. I like building relationships, and I like seeing people warts and all, basically, and accepting their frailty. When I read your book, I think of you as more of a philosopher. You're actually really studying the process of life. Do I have that wrong, or are you also a social person with your soul in the game?
So I am a kind of a weird extrovert introvert. And what I mean by this is that when I meet people I don't know, it consumes a huge amount of energy and it's very draining for me. So I try to not to go to social functions where I have to do a lot of small talk. At the same time, I enjoy spending time with people I know and I respect and am interested in. So that's number one. Number two, I think I became interested in philosophy because I've been writing a lot. Because if you write 2 hours a day, that's like, 700 hours a year. So you just start, when you start looking at the computer screen, you're going to start reflecting on life. And I think that's probably what turned me into philosopher a lot more than anything else.
So, stoicism. If I say the word stoicism to you, what does that mean?
I usually look at it as operating system for life that doesn't require any kind of connection to God or anything. Very secular, that helps you to go through life, minimizing negative emotions. That's a very primitive way to look at it, but it helps you to deal with life where you are the texture of your experience with life is richer, and at the same time there is a lot less negativity in life. That's my interpretation of Stoicism. That's how I look at
it. When I think of it, I think it's temporal, though. I think that the Stoics do a good job of explaining the temporary nature of life, and the result of which is, rather than being anxious about it, sort of just relax into it and embrace it. Do I have that right?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Anthony. I don't know why I'm doing this. I apologize. But Anthony said
Vitaliy, you can call me anything. You can call me anything you want, brother. Trust me, I've called a lot worse. I've been called a lot worse than Tony. You can call me anything you want.
Yeah, no, but I want to be called the name you want to be called. So, so the Carl Jung said something that really stuck with me. He said, "Your life only starts when you're 40. The first 40 years is just you doing research." And the reason it stuck with me because
well, how old are you? You look under 40, though.
I'm 50. I'm 50. So I'm
50.
10 years into the.
Oh, you're an old bastard. Actually, I thought you were a lot younger than that. Okay, yeah. I got you by 11 years, my man. Okay, I'm 61. Okay. All right. So go ahead.
You look at this. Here's the difference between
life starts.
My hair never turns gray; it just falls out. And you have a full head of hair. So
I'm dying. I'm dyeing the hair. Okay, this is a fantastic dye job, by the way. People are listening on audio. You can't see how beautiful the dye job is. I'm not using Rudy Giuliani's hair colorist, which is himself. But tell me what I'm getting right about the temporary nature of life and why Stoics teach us to seize upon it.
Yeah, so let me continue with Carl Jung because I think this is where the answer is. So if you think about when you are young, you look at life and you look at it's infinite. Like you're 10 years old, this 10 years lasted forever, and you think, oh, I'm gonna live until I'm 80 or 90. That's forever. When you turn 40, you suddenly realized if you're lucky, you're at half point, and you actually can look back and say, I know actually how the 40 years feels like. And it's not that much. And suddenly you start appreciating time. You suddenly realize that this is all going to end. And therefore you start putting a lot more value on time. So when it comes to Stoics, I think they appreciated that the favorite concept from Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. Okay? Because that's probably the key concept in Stoicism. And the dichotomy control is very simple. It's basically, Epictetus said there are certain things that are up to you and everything else isn't. And what's up to you is very limited. It's really it's your values, it's your decisions, it's how you react to things. Everything else is external and you have no control over that. And because you have no control over that, you should spend a lot less time being obsessed about it. And once you actually embrace that, it really changes how you interact with the world. And suddenly, this is what I call the texture of life changes. And your stress declines because you realize all of these things, all the things I'm struggling with, in reality, they're so insignificant. And anyways, that's, what are your thoughts?
Well, no, I agree with you. I think the big problem for all of us, frankly, is the balancing test. And this is what I wanted to ask you. We have to balance our ambition with our contentment. And we have to balance our life, our health, our time. And it's hard to do, especially, you live in America now, my brother. It's a capitalist country. Okay, we're dug in. If you want to be successful, and if I live in New York, I'm assuming, where do you live? You live in New York?
I live in Denver.
Denver. All right, it's a little cheaper in Denver, but it's still an expensive city.
Yeah.
So you got to dig in, and I have to dig in. So how do you balance all of that? How do you take your ambition and you square it with your contentment, and you create the success and the peace and prosperity that you want for yourself and your family members?
I think it's a great question. So I used to think you can have a balanced life, and then I realized that the term balanced life kind of assumes that everything is equal. And what I realized throughout your life, the weights change a lot. When you are in your 20s and you don't have family, you can spend a lot more time hypothetically working, building a business. When you're older and you have kids, your priorities shift. Now, I think the way I look at this, it's from a kind of regret minimization framework. Okay, so if you like, okay, I'm gonna take you for example. You love investing. You run an investment firm. You're obsessed about it. You want to build it. Now that means that if you have soul in the game, so therefore you could be working 20 hours a day for 7 days a week. The problem is that you have kids and you have a wife and you're going to neglect them. Okay, when you're older, and so therefore there's a cost to that. When you're older, you're going to be looking back at that and say that was a mistake. So from regret minimization, you want to make sure you want to put guardrails that even that kind of that your obsession does not take over your life completely, and that you still feel like you spend time with your kids, because your kids grow up, right? And when they go to when they leave the house, you feel so bad that you did not drive them to school. So let me tell you how I do this. I put this kind of knowing that I have an obsession about what I do. I can analyze the stock and forget about everything else, and I can wake up at midnight just doing research. So what I do, I want to make sure that every day I drive my daughter to school. That's one guardrail. I make sure that I go for a walk every single day. That's my way of spending time outside and just staying sane. On Friday nights, we have family dinners. On Saturday, I spend time with my family. So these are kind of my guardrails that protect me from my obsession. And also another way and this is more difficult when you live in New York, because like I wrote about this actually. When you live in New York and you especially work on Wall Street, it's such a alpha male dominated society where you're constantly competing against everybody. And it's very difficult, and actually very difficult to fight against that. And so I'm kind of lucky that I live in Denver, that I don't have that exposure. Like Warren Buffett lived in Omaha, and I think that benefited him as well. One thing I did over my life is kind of de-emphasize the importance of material things. I'm not a monk, and I'm not living in the garage, etc. But Stoics said that, I think it was Epictetus who said, a lot of happiness comes of wanting what you have, a lot of satisfaction, and I just want a lot less than many other people, and that prevents me basically that money. So money becomes very second or third or fourth thing I'm thinking about. That's how I deal with it.
But is it because you grew up in Russia and it was harder there?
I think it's part of it. It's tricky because growing up in Soviet Union where we had a lot less, I appreciated having fewer things. But at the same time, when I came to the United States and I saw what this country has to offer, when I was young, I wanted to have the American dream, whatever that was. I think it's actually probably right in changing. Anthony, this is actually the most important thing to happen to me as an adult is writing. It's made me, it gave me introspection, and I think I rewired myself over the years because of that.
Listen, there's a scene in the Bible, passage in the Bible, the happiest people or those that are happy with their lot in life, whatever then the universe is requisitioned to them, they're satisfied with. And, you and I know centimillionaires, billionaires, some of which are quite miserable, that they, no matter what they're in recipient from the universe of, they're never happy, which makes your book so powerful, is that you're dialed into the portfolio of life. It's not just one aspect of life. It's the things you're talking about with your children. It's the things you're talking about with the things outside of your business career. Again, we want status. We want people to think well of us. We want to walk into a room and have people think, hey, there's a good guy. Here he comes. And we want our children to love us. Certainly we want our wives to love us. But we have to love ourselves, don't we? I think that's a big message in your book, that you have to find inside yourself mechanisms for forgiving yourself of making bad decisions, mechanisms for forgiving yourself of whatever petite indiscretions you've created. Am I right or wrong? I mean, you talk about the soul being in the game, but it's you dealing with your soul, right? You reconciling with yourself, you finding happiness.
Let me push you a little bit on what you said, because you said several different things here, and I would break them up. So you walk into the world, so you want your kids to love you, and you want your kids to love you, and they're going to love you because you're going to spend time with them, because of the character, because how you're going to treat them. You want your wife to love you, and it's going to be similar, but when you walk into the room, how people react to you, that is completely not up to you. And then also they can respect you for many different things, right? And I would argue the only thing you have control is your character, right? And I think that's what Stoics would say. So therefore, kind of internal, external framework, I would focus on just being the best version I can be, and how people love, like people that I never. By the way, here's another problem: is that you are basically, if you walk into the room and people kind of respond to you in a certain way, people you never met, you are basically. This is the problem with with rock stars, right? Because the reason a lot of rock stars become alcoholics or drug addicts, because they're constantly seeking for this external adulation, which they can't control. Okay, and when they don't get it, they'll start looking for happiness in drugs or alcohol. So if you start focusing, and when I say you, I'm just I'm not talking about you in general. But if I start focusing on things that I have control over, which is my character, which is my behavior, I think the quality of my life would improve.
I think it makes sense. All right. Well, we're at the point in the podcast where we take things from your book and we ask you to respond to them. But before I get there, I just have one quick question. As I was, you talk a little bit about stock market stoicism. As I just wanted to ask you about how we escape a stock market double hell. What does that mean, and how do we escape it?
All right. So there are a couple of things in here. So let's talk about double hell first. I'm a value investor. And if you were a value investor in 1999, there was a heaven and hell at the same time. The hell was because if you did not own .com stocks, you were underperforming. Okay, so that was the hell part. The heaven part was there was a lot of cheap stocks to buy everywhere. Okay, so yes, there was hell, but when the hell was over, your value stocks went up. Today, we are kind of in double hell in the United States because everything is expensive. The Magnificent Sevens are expensive, but then there is everything else is expensive as well. And the example I'll give you, even a kind of a company like Walmart, okay? Walmart, I don't know, it's growing sales maybe 3, 4, 5% kind of GDP like grower. In early 2024, it was trading at 30 times earnings, which is expensive for that kind of company. And if a client came to me and said, Vitaliy, do you think I should own it? Should I buy it? Why? I would have told them it's an expensive stock. And if clients would listen to me, they would have left 70%, 73% on the table, because Walmart went from 30 times earnings and went up 70% in 24. So the U.S. market is expensive today, but there is heaven, okay, and that heaven is right now is in Europe. Europe, you all know all the problems in Europe today, but all these problems plus a lot more reflected in European stocks. So as a value investor today, actually, I'm finding opportunities not just the United States, and we have some investments in the United States, but we've been making investments in Europe because that's what the value is. That's how you kind of escape that double hell. About stock market and stoicism, we are coming back to the economy of control. All I can do is focus, make sure I'm doing the best research as possible. That's internal to me. What I have is no control over how the market is going to value my stocks on a daily basis, what opinion it has on my stocks. As long as I'm buying significant high quality companies that are undervalued, at some point the market will price them correctly. Now, one thing I have control over, how I respond to market's insanity. And to market, and the way I respond, I just keep doing the same over and over again. And I know it's usually that's the definition of insanity but at some point historically it worked out. That's how you kind of take stoicism and apply it to stock market.
Okay, very well said, and I appreciate you explaining it so clearly. All right, so we're at the point in the podcast. We have 5 words. I'm going to say the word. You say the word back to me that comes to your head. Okay, you ready?
I'll try.
Okay, I say the word stoicism. You say what?
Say calmness.
Okay. I say the word investment. You say what?
Value investing.
Okay, you're a value investor. I say life. You say what? I say the word life.
Gratitude.
Okay. Happiness.
Meaningful.
What about soul? I use the word soul. S-O-U-L. Say it again?
Alignment.
Enlighten. All right. You're a brilliant guy. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And I'm very proud of myself being able to pronounce your name correctly, Vitaliy. So joining us is Vitaliy Katsenelson. And he wrote a book called Soul in the Game, The Art of a Meaningful Life, which is a beautiful book. And I look forward to seeing you again. I hope you'll write another book and we'll get you back on. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Anthony. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.